Okay, welcome to the first episode of the Round Rock Ward podcast.
Wait, this is the first? I thought you had already done somebody else.
You're the first.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
All right. So, this podcast is to get to know people in our ward and the wisdom and stories that they like to share and just what other fun nuggets we can pick up. So, today's guest has been all over the world. He's served in many capacities and continues serving. Hard worker and got a lot of jokes up his sleeve. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Adam Christensen. Welcome, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This sounds very formal and
It does.
official. We're in our studio.
The studio means our piano room. So, Adam, how about in 2 minutes you kind of give us a quick synopsis of some experiences, where you've gone, what you've done in your life, and we'll go from there.
Well, to start, I'm the 12th child of a family of 13. I have 24 older brothers and sisters, and the youngest one is an only child. And if you can figure that riddle out, well, you're better than most. So I come from a large family. There was 26 of us children altogether, and we grew up in a 5 bedroom house, 2 stories with a basement, and it was built by my great grandfather, and it was in a little farm town in Idaho called Rigby, where television was invented. That's our claim to fame out there, is television and russet potatoes. And let's see, I graduated from Rigby High School, and I joined the military, shipped off to Oklahoma for basic training. I did 3 months over there. Then I did 6 months or 9 months, I don't remember, in Fort Sam, Houston, getting my certifications and EMT licensing for to be a combat medic in the military.
So let me stop you for a second. What got you interested in going the medic route in the military?
That's an interesting story by itself. So when I was a young scout, I had a scoutmaster who was a veterinarian, and one day he took us to do a hysterectomy on a dog. And I'd grown up on a farm, so I'd seen the inside of animals plenty of times, but never a live one. And it was really interesting to me, and I thought, this is really cool. This is something I'd like to do. So I thought, I'll be a veterinarian. And
They don't have vets in the military.
well, I realized that I'm more of a people person, so I didn't really want to talk to animals. I wanted to talk to people. So I was like, well, being a medical person and working with people, that's very similar to being a vet, but better. So I decided to go into the medical field, and I wasn't sure where or how or what I was going to do in the medical field. I just knew I wanted to be in it. And so when I was looking at college options, they were all quite expensive, and I said, well, military will pay for my college if I join the military. And I was kind of patriotic anyway, so just wanted to serve my country so I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and decided to join up as a medic in the military. And that's kind of how I got my feet wet.
Okay, so you went through basic training. Were you out of high school already?
Oh, so no, I wasn't out of high school. I hadn't graduated yet. So I went to basic training, and it's called a split option, where you then come home and finish high school, and then after high school, then I went and finished AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training. And in my last year of high school was when the Twin Towers came down, And so I was already signed up for the military. And my recruiter assured me that we hadn't been to war in a long time, and we probably weren't going to go to war for a very long time, because we carry a big stick. And so I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Sign up for the military, get the benefits, don't go to war. Awesome. And
The next year.
the next year, I was over in Iraq as a medic. And funny thing was, I was working in the clinic where they bring in the injured soldiers and whatnot as they're bringing them off the field and whatnot. And in comes my recruiter with a big piece of shrapnel in his butt. And they haul him over to me, and I get to be his medic, and I just look at him and say, so we're not going to war, huh? And he just kind of laughs and says, well, looks like you got the better end of the deal anyway, so.
That's funny. So there was, between your senior year of high school and then when you were in Iraq, you actually served a mission, right? Where were you called on your mission?
Oh, yeah. So I was actually in AIT when I got my mission call in Texas, in doing my medical training. And I got my mission call, but it was shipped to my home address, and I was in Texas. And so my sister-in-law, she read it to me over the phone. It was rather informal, and there wasn't all the fanfare of having everybody standing around. It was just me standing at a payphone while my sister-in-law read it to me. And she says, you're going to Antananarivo, Madagascar. And neither one of us knew where that was. So that was kind of cool.
Wow.
So I finished up my training, and then flew out to Madagascar. And about a year and a half into my mission, my mission president called me in and said, well, they're sending you back home because you're going to go over to Iraq. And I was one of the first 7 missionaries who were called home from their missions to serve in war. And I met all 7 of them.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was cool. There's been many more since then, but we were the first.
Okay. So, I guess, is that where your life, that brought you to this point right here, or what was after that?
Oh, no, it keeps going. So while I was over in Iraq, I served in the, I call it the Kirkuk Iraq mission, where, I went from the mission field to the battlefield, but it still felt like a mission. So that was kind of interesting. And we had this translator over there who was from England, but he was Arabic, and he spoke the language quite well, which is why he was our translator. And we had many discussions talking about religion and home and stuff like that. And I guess he was impressed with whatever I had going on, and he kept asking me about my religion, and I kept telling him. And being fresh off my mission, I had all the discussions memorized, so those were easy to give to him. And eventually he wanted to get baptized, and so I started asking around, because obviously I can't just baptize anyone willy-nilly. And after some research, they decided that it would be prudent to ask the general authority, since he was
It's an area authority of the area?
Yeah, they reached out to the area authority, and it eventually got pushed up to the top 3 people, the top dogs, who they decided that, yeah, it would be okay to baptize them, because you got to be careful who you baptize, because it could literally mean life or death for them. And if they're practicing Muslim and, you know, their kin don't take too kindly to them switching religions, then they could end up dead. So, but he was from England. He was pretty far removed from the Muslim faith, and he didn't have any family that wanted him dead. So they said, yeah, you can go ahead and baptize him. So we baptized him in a water buffalo, which is a big water tank that they used for carrying water around to different parts of the desert. So it was kind of an interesting experience.
Yeah.
But before I went out on my mission, or before I went out to Iraq, we were doing some training in Fort Bliss, Oklahoma. And
was it blissful?
No, not at all. No, we lived in like these old World War II barracks, and they were completely
There's barracks
run down.
from World War II?
Yep, still there. And oh no, it's a whole political mess as to why they're still there and why they can't fix them up, and they also can't tear them down. And
oh man,
yeah, you think getting a permit to build an addition to your house is crazy. Try being in the military and getting, yeah, it's nuts. Anyway, so that's a wild run of the mill that we're. So we're in these little old World War II barracks that no insulation. It's literally the siding on your house, the wood, the wood siding on houses, like that is the wall. There's no in between.
No insulation.
Yeah, no insulation. We're sitting there in 100-degree humid weather. They got these poor, pathetic little AC machines trying to keep up that, they don't do anything except blow warm air around. Yeah, it was pretty miserable. Plumbing didn't work and things were falling apart. But we had some fun. Like, we'd play pranks on some of the other guys by, we'd take some 550 cord, some paracord, and we'd wrap it around the hose of a fire extinguisher. We'd kink it, and then wrap the 550 cord around it, and then we would pull the pin and hold down the trigger, and we'd tape down the trigger, and we'd hold on to the end of that 550 cord, and then you throw the fire extinguisher into their barracks, and when the 550 cord reaches, it unravels from the kinked hose, then it just starts spraying fire extinguisher powder everywhere.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. That's
prankster.
And then we had we had some fun times there. We had anyway, so I was going back home. They said, go back home, you got 2 weeks, get your affairs in order, write your will, because as soon as you get back,
So this is coming home from your mission, and you got called from early. Okay.
Came home from a mission to go to Iraq, but they didn't just send us straight to Iraq. They sent us to Fort Bliss for additional training.
Okay.
So.
Oh, you had an experience on the way back, though, right? That you really kind of saw that, okay, the Lord's with us. This is not just unfair that I got called home from my mission, right?
I had so many experiences.
With your taxi driver?
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at.
Okay,
so
okay.
Yeah, so they said, go home, you got 2 weeks, get your affairs in order, write your wills, and say goodbye to your loved ones. You're never coming back. Well, not that. I had that last part. I just assumed I was going to die, so anything after that was blissful. Anyway, so I got my stuff packed up. I'm getting ready to get on the go to the airport, and taxi driver pulls up, and it's a black guy. No big surprise. Oh, by this time we're in Louisiana. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. They moved us from Fort Bliss to Louisiana, so. There's a lot of they moved us to what they call the chicken coops. So these are not World War II barracks. Now these are giant, basically picture a warehouse, but instead of walls, you just have like tent flaps.
Like canvas?
Yeah, canvas.
Wow.
So it just reminded me of those giant chicken coops that the big farms, chicken farms have. And so we called them the chicken coops, but it was just like 300 or 400 guys in a bunch of cots stretched out across this huge chicken coop.
Wow. In Louisiana.
In Louisiana.
Wow. Okay.
So we go. So I'm getting ready to go home for 2 weeks, and I jump in this taxi cab with this guy. He's a black guy. No big surprise. It's Louisiana. There's lots of black guys. But this guy starts having issues with his window, and he takes the Lord's name in vain, but he does so in Malagasy. And I was like, aha, I know what he's saying. Now you got to understand, like at that time, you could probably count the number of people from Madagascar in the United States on one hand. So it was really rare to see anybody, but I spoke his language fluently. Now, it's even rarer to see a white guy in Madagascar, but even more rare to see a white guy in Madagascar who knows the language, the native language. So this guy certainly wasn't expecting anything from me. But I turned to him and I just asked him in his native language to please not take the Lord's name in vain. Of course, I had just freshly come back from Madagascar, so I was quite fluent in his language, and he was not expecting that, and he turned white as a ghost. And he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, I'm a messenger from God." Which I was, right? And
isn't there something with the language that messenger?
Yeah, messenger and angel are pretty much the same thing.
Oh, so
it's like angel.
You're an angel of God.
But so I told him, messenger from God, and I gave him the first discussion on the way to the airport, and gave him a pass along card that I had in my wallet, and I told him to reach out to the missionaries. So be interesting to hear the other side of that story if it ever came to fruition. But that was pretty cool. So
wow. So you knew the Lord was with you going out to Iraq.
Yep. I felt pretty confident.
That's really cool. So Iraq, was there a notable experience you'd like to share from Iraq from your service? You were there for a year?
Was it a year? A year and a half, roughly.
And you had a break in between for a week or two?
I did, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you had a girlfriend during this time too, right?
We weren't going to mention that.
No, that's the fun part of the story. I was not the girlfriend. So you and this girl were pretty close. Did you have plans to get married after your mission?
No, I never planned on marrying this
girl.
girl.
Okay. Did she think you did?
Probably.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay, so, no, there's two girls.
Okay, the first girl.
The first girl, yes, I was planning on marrying, but
Okay.
she dear John me halfway through.
Yeah, she wasn't going to wait around anymore.
No, she met a feller, and she was pretty happy with him, and even though she'd waited like 3 years, and we'd written, and I guess 3 years was just too long. She couldn't wait for that long anyway, so, she dumped me, and then I met somebody. My younger brother introduced me to a girl while I was out there. But anyway, so going out to Iraq, you asked about a memorable experience. So getting to Iraq was quite memorable because sorry, I'm trying to filter out the good stories and the bad stories.
Oh, there's so many stories. You got to record these stories.
I know. Some of them are probably not appropriate for the Plano Third Ward.
Yeah,
Round Rock.
We'll do another private recording session.
But I'll tell you about the airport. So we're flying into Iraq, and we're on a C-130, and we're all loaded in shoulder to shoulder in the back. And these C-130s are incredible, and the pilots are amazing. A C-130 has 4 engines, and you could blow out 3 of the engines and still fly for 200 miles on one engine. Like, these things are crazy. And the acrobatics that these pilots can do with a C-130 airplane would make your head spin, because they look like, I mean, they look like they would fly like an elephant. I mean, they're just,
They're
they
huge.
don't look like an acrobatic airplane, but I guarantee you they are. So the protocol for coming into a hot zone is all the lights are out. There's no runway lights. You can't see the ground. You can't, like, these guys, I don't know how they fly this thing. But we start getting fire from the ground. So somebody from the ground is shooting at us. And so these guys take this giant plane and just start corkscrewing all the way down to the ground. And I was for sure that we were going to die. So I did the only thing that was, seemed appropriate. I threw my hand in the air and said, "Wee!"
What?
Like as though I was on a roller coaster. And I got people thrown up on the left and on the right. And anyway, they pull out of that spin or that spiral, and they land real smooth. And I remember when they opened up the back, it was like a blast of hot air, and
Oh.
and it smelled like a burning tire. It was awful. All of Iraq smelled like a burning tire. But that's probably because of all the oil fields and whatnot.
Wow.
So anyway, that was a pretty memorable experience coming into Iraq.
Introduction to Iraq. That's pretty cool. So, were there any times that because you were in combat, you weren't just on a peacekeeping mission, were there times where you felt like your life was preserved, and you were protected?
Yeah,
when you were there.
yeah. There was a lot of times. So when I was there, we were the third iteration to go over there because the war had just started, which was really interesting to me because we were a National Guard unit, not a regular Army unit. And so, of course, whenever they call up the National Guard, then they make you regular Army status. So, but we were a National Guard unit. But yeah, there was quite a few times over there that you just knew the Lord was watching out for you. And I don't know how personal you want me to get.
As personal as you'd like to get. I mean, if you're willing to share. I know you've had some really neat experiences.
So yeah, one of my favorite experiences was, and I was just telling my kids this today. We were talking about an attitude of gratitude, and if you were to rank Christmases on best to worst, one of my best Christmases was hunkered in a small tiny bunker in the middle of Iraq, singing Christmas songs with a bunch of strangers while we were getting bombed. That was one of my favorite Christmases. I've been hard pressed to beat that one. That was pretty amazing. One of my least favorite Christmases is when one year we had we were very fortunate and blessed with a good income, and we had lots of money, and we bought all this really cool stuff for our kids. And it was just one of the most miserable Christmases I've ever experienced because nobody was grateful about crying over, I didn't want this, and
There's junk all over the house.
Junk all over the house. And when the last present was opened, they were like, that's it, that's all, I didn't get anything, blah, blah, blah. It was the worst.
Well, Christmases where you were growing up were very different, right?
Oh, yeah, I loved the Christmases growing up. All we got were socks and oranges.
And little handmade things here and there. You guys made for each other.
Yep. So, but so yeah, I mean, it was my first Christmas in Iraq, and the Iraqis, these Arab guys out there, the insurgents, whatever you want to call them, they thought, well, let's see, big Christmas holiday, let's go ahead and keep them busy. So they were just lobbing mortars into our base, and they said, all right, go get in the bunkers. So we ran out of our little tent things, and we ran into these bunkers that are basically just concrete. You ever see when they're digging new ditches, and they put those concrete, what do they call them, culverts. It's basically that.
Oh, that's where you were sheltered under?
Yeah, it's basically that with dirt on top of it.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and then, these mortar rounds would hit, and they always say, if you can hear the mortar round, then you're still alive. And it's like, okay, well, I'm still alive.
Let's just sing some Christmas songs.
Yeah, so, they had about 20 of these little concrete bunkers lined up, and you could fit about 15 to 20 people in each of them, and so that you just find whichever one is you can fit into, and then you cram yourself in there with them. And the one I was in, it's Christmas, and so I was in there with a bunch of guys from my unit back home, and of course we were all members, and so we said, oh, let's sing some Christmas songs. So we started singing, like Silent Night and whatnot. And as we started singing, then the bunker next to us, we could hear them. Oh, by the way, the sound reverberated beautifully through these bunkers. It was, and you could harmonize, and it was just like the resonance was amazing. It was really cool. And then you could hear the bunker next to us. They were singing, and then once that song was done, then you'd hear a bunker like 3 bunkers down. They were singing, so you'd join in with them, and you got all these people just singing. It was pretty cool. And then afterwards, they sent the medics out to go clean up the mess. So we had to go out and search for. We basically ran to wherever the bombs were, and check out, make sure everybody was okay and nobody was injured. And we got lucky that night; nobody got injured. So.
Wow.
But that was one of my favorite Christmases.
Put you in the mood for Christmas in July.
Yeah.
That's fun. So, do you want to talk more about Iraq, or do you want to fast forward a little bit?
That's your interview. You ask the questions.
Okay, so there's one story where I love this because I love music, but you guys were on this convoy, is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're driving, and those roads are scary because there's explosive planted everywhere.
Yep. We were traveling down what we called IED Alley. There's a couple of places that were quite dangerous to travel over in Iraq, and Cherry Lane was one of those.
Cherry Lane?
Yeah, they called it Cherry Lane.
Sounds so cheerful.
I don't know if that was the name of it.
Oh, they actually have street
names?
It
may have been called Cherry Lane.
I
don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember if that was our nickname for it or if that was the name of the street. But it was one of those IED alleys. IED is an improvised explosive device. They take like a mortar shell or any kind of explosive, and they'll rig it up and bury it in the ground, and they'll cover it with trash, and they'll cover it with a bin, or they'll cover it with a broken down car or anything like that. And they will, as your convoy's going by, they'll blow it up. And they had a lot of really clever tricks. And one of the clever tricks they would do is they would go out, and I don't know how accurate this is. This is what I was told by the EOD. Is they would go out and they would pour diesel. They'd like park their car. They'd have the bottom of their car hollowed out. They'd go out and they'd park their car on the side of the road, and they'd pour diesel on the road, and that would soften up the road. And then they'd dig it out. They'd plant the explosive in there, and then they'd pave it back over so you couldn't tell. Like, all you saw was this patch. Anyway, that's what we had hit, apparently. And we were riding in this big LMTV, which I don't remember what the acronym stands for. But an LMTV has the whole cab of the LMTV. You can pull these pins, and the whole cab will actually tip forward, and that's how you get access to your engine, to work on the engine. So the cab is designed to come off, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we had hit this thing. Now, we didn't have much armor on this LMTV, so how we survived, I have no idea. But we were driving down the road, and I was actually with one of these other missionaries who had come home early, one of the 7. And we were talking about, like, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. You got called home. Okay, where were you? We were chatting it up. And as we were driving down, we had this really ominous feeling, and we're just like, well, let's sing some songs. Well, of course, the only songs that we could remember were primary songs. So we were just singing primary songs, and we felt like there was this aura or this bubble of protection around us, and it felt really cool. And as we were driving, we get hit by this, or we drove over apparently this IED, and they blew it, and it literally threw the cab of we were 50 feet away from the rest of the vehicle.
So you were in the cab.
Were in the cab.
And you remember an explosion?
Yeah.
And then you were on the ground way far away from your vehicle.
Yeah, but we were still in the cab.
Wow.
So, and I feel a little bit robbed because I didn't have any injuries to speak of. And so I didn't get a Purple Heart. So, but we were well protected, which surprised me because these LMTVs are not well armored, and we had just hillbilly armor on it, which is like this 1/4-inch steel that they had welded to the sides, and which didn't do anything for the underbelly. But how we survived, I have no idea. But I saw a few of those weird instances where people survived that had no business surviving.
Wow.
So that was one of them.
So you made it through. So you completed your year service. You survived. You did get some injuries, and your life was still preserved. And then you came home.
Yep. Came home. Survived. Came home. And
then you're really excited to use the GI Bill, right? That paid for your college.
Yeah. I used the GI Bill, and I got into college. Started taking some health science classes. Kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. Actually, I knew what I wanted to be at that point. I knew that I wanted to go into the nursing program, and I had applied like every semester, and I got denied entry every time because my GPA was low. I'd already taken a bunch of classes, and my GPA was like 3.6 or 3.8. And most of the kids getting into, and I was older, and most of the kids were younger, and they had a GPA of like 4.0 or 4.5, however that happens. I don't even know. But anyway, so apparently I wasn't smart enough to get into the medical program, into the nursing program.
Now, what school was this?
This was BYU, Idaho.
Okay.
And my very last semester, I was about to graduate with my bachelor's in health science. And I was like, oh, I'll apply one more time. So I go in there, I sit down, they look at my grades, they say, hey, we see everything looks great except this math class that I took.
Math class.
And it was algebra. And I got a D in that class, and that was the hardest I've ever worked for any grade in my entire life. And I'm pretty sure I deserved an F in it. Algebra is not my subject. I cannot wrap my head around it. But I had a one-on-one with the teacher, who was actually a really cool teacher and a great teacher. And I sat down with him and I said, look, I'm going to be straight honest with you. I have never tried so hard in my entire life. And he's like, all right, we're going to pass you. You're going to pass the class. You'll be all right. And I'm pretty sure I got a D in that class. Anyway, so I sat down with the people that were admitting people into nursing, and they said, well, everything looks good, but this algebra class, you gotta retake that. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do anything you need me to get into this nursing program. I really want to get into it. And they're like, all right, yeah, just retake that class. And I walked out and I said, I'm not taking that class again. I said, I guess I'm not getting into the nursing program. And a week later, they called and said, hey, somebody dropped out of our alternate program, and we think that you'll be a perfect fit for that. Now, the alternate program is basically the program. They only allow like 5 or 6 people in that program, and it's for old geezers, the old people that they're not young, they already have life experience, and so they're like, we're gonna throw them a bone. And so I got into the alternate program.
Which was nice for you, right? Because you
Which
were
was
working
great, yeah.
and going to college. What was your job then?
I was a phlebotomist at
Oh,
Madison
that's
Memorial Hospital.
right. You were the vampire of Memorial Hospital.
Yep.
Okay, you got to tell about why were you the vampire?
So
What
I
shift
got,
were you working?
I was working night shift, and I got really good at drawing blood, like ridiculously good at drawing blood. Well, as a combat medic, 90% of my work was needle work, so I was really good at sticking people with a needle. And so in the morning, they give you a list of all the people that needed their blood drawn. And most of it was in the mom baby unit, moms that just came in, had a baby or about to have a baby. And of course, they're exhausted, they're sleeping. And I felt bad for them, so I was like, I'm not going to turn the light on to draw their blood. I'm just going to let them sleep. So I just come in and be like, hey, I'm just here to draw your blood. And most of the time, they didn't wake up. And I'd get their blood, and most of the time, they never woke up.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't turn the light on or anything. And they just thought that was amazing. Like, you got their blood? I was like, yeah, it's pretty easy. They got big veins. Just slip it in there. So, well, yeah, it's not like it was pretty easy. So it only bit me once, though.
Okay.
So I was, they called me. I was like 3 a.m. They called me. I got the little, you get the list, and these are labs that are ordered, like the doctors order them like 10 hours in advance. We want a CBC at this time. We want a CMP at this time. We want a BT at this time. We want a PPT at this time. You get the point. So I got the list. I go up there and it's dark. I go into the ICU. And it's an older gentleman. I was like, I can get blood from anybody. And I'm poking around. I'm poking around. I'm like, I couldn't feel a vein anywhere. I was like, what the heck is going on here? And poking and prodding. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just do a kind of a blind stick, stick it in the general area, and hopefully you get some blood. And after poking him a couple of times, the nurse comes in and says, what are you doing? I said, well, just drawing some blood. And she said, he's been dead for 3 hours. Now, dead people don't bother me normally, but when you don't know they're dead and you've been poking around at them for 5 to 10 minutes, I was a little creeped out. I was like, oh.
It takes a lot to creep you out, too.
It did. I was like, oh, God, I didn't even know this guy was dead. Next time I'm turning the light on.
That's funny. So you were able to get through college. You finally did graduate nursing. By that point, you were married.
Yep.
And living out in the farmlands in Idaho, right? Commuting to school.
Yep.
All right. And then after a year of being married, your wife said, pack up, let's move. It's too cold here.
Moving. Yeah, we had a terribly awesome winter, one that would make Elizabeth jealous. And after that, Amanda's like, nope, not again. We're out. A lot of people romanticize, beautiful winters with the deep snow, but trust me, after about 2 weeks of it, when you can't go anywhere and your car's buried and, you got 6 months of that going on, then you're just like, no, this is really drab and it wears at you. So we moved to warmer climates. We went from Plano, Idaho to Plano, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
From Plano First Ward to Plano First Ward.
That's pretty cool. And then to Plano Third Ward. And now they're combined to make the ultra awesome Round Rock Ward.
Yep. It's
pretty cool. Are there any callings that you've had over the course of your life that you've enjoyed or that
I've enjoyed all of them, but let's see. I was when we were married, we got to do the what was it? What was that called?
The youth Sunday school class.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. We did primary together.
That's right. Yeah, that was fun. I was the chorister, and you were the teacher of the 6-year-olds?
Yeah.
7-year-olds?
Something like that. And then,
That's
which
fun.
was funny because so doing doing that calling for a while, being in the primary, right? Uh, the elders quorum comes to my house and says, "Hey, we haven't seen you in church in a while. We haven't seen you in elders quorum in a while." I said, "Yeah, that's because I'm in the primary ward."
Oh gosh, their primary was huge.
It was huge.
It's like 200 kids. That was a lot, man.
There were some pretty cool
It was
people.
really fun though. I loved those families. Once they warm up to you, they're like your best friends.
So let's see, we moved out here, and I was first counselor to the elders quorum in
Oh,
the
that's
first
right.
ward
Yeah.
with David Hinckley as the elders quorum president. And then in the third ward, I was called to be a scoutmaster, and I was a scoutmaster that apparently I did such a horrible job that the church is like, okay, we're washing our hands of this whole program, and they just stopped doing scouting altogether.
Well, you were still in scouts for a good 6-7 years, right?
Yeah, I was. I think I was 2 years as the assistant scoutmaster, and then 5 years as the scoutmaster.
Yeah, so you got almost tenure.
Yeah. I got two boys to get their eagles. I helped them, Liam Morgan and Colin Lashemina. They got their eagles.
Yeah. You've had some other boys come through. Jacob Lunt.
Yeah, I worked with them. Yeah, with the Lunts and with the Sworensons and.
Okay, do a quick side. There's some scouting experiences and camping. Okay, go ahead.
After that, I did 4 years of seminary. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Can't forget that.
And COVID was in the middle of that, right?
Middle of COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they took pity on me and they called me to be the ward emergency preparedness specialist, which has been fun.
Yeah, you have a passion for emergency preparedness.
It's mostly just going in and making the ladies in the Relief Society laugh. That really is the sunshine in my calling.
Yeah, what's making them laugh?
I don't know. Apparently something I say is funny. Every time I go in there, I get a chuckle. So
you go in to give little announcements?
Yeah.
Safety tips or preparedness tips?
Time to time.
What was this week's preparedness tip?
I didn't have one.
Oh.
It was fifth Sunday, so.
Oh, that's right. Okay. To be continued. So, you would teach the scouts to, actually be prepared. But you had actually a special scouting award that you gave out, right?
Yeah. Created it myself.
What was it called?
And even had a little award that they could wear on their uniform. It's called the Adapt and Overcome Award. And it kind of in scouts you have the motto be prepared. Well, sometimes you can be prepared and things still happen. For example, you can be prepared and have a year's supply of food storage, and then a tornado comes through and destroys your house and spreads your food storage around the neighborhood. And so what do you do in those situations? Well, I think the next step up is to adapt and overcome. To adapt to your situation and overcome adversity. And so I would, the goal of this was to get the scouts to learn how to adapt and overcome. And it's more than just suffering through something. For example, there was a kid who had brought his tent on a camping trip, but forgot the tent poles. And so, sure, he could just wrap the tent around him and suffer through the night. But what could he do to adapt to the situation and overcome it? Not just suffer through it, but make his life comfortable. And so, he took some sticks and he put them in, found some sticks on the ground, and big long ones, and stuck them inside of his tent like a teepee, and he had a functional tent. And it worked really well for him. We had some boys who we showed up to a campsite, and it was cold, and we forgot anything that had anything to do with fire starter. They didn't even have flint and steel with them.
Oh, no. And
so they went and they found this big garbage bin, and they rummaged through it, and they found some gum wrappers, and they took a battery from their flashlight, and they were able to use the gum wrapper and a battery to to make a match and start a fire.
Oh my gosh.
And all they had was one gum wrapper. That was it. And they did it. They got it started. And
Wow.
so all those boys got the Adapt and Overcome Award. And so there's a lot of stuff like that. I've since adapted it so that the Adapt and Overcome Award has to benefit other people, not just yourself. And so that's been kind of fun to watch what people will do. For example, scout camp one year, one of the scouts, there's this huge mud puddle, and you had to like really walk around the edges and get into the weeds, and then you got chiggers all over you, and it was because the mud puddle, like you could not traverse the mud puddle. Well, one of the scouts built a little bridge over it, which benefited the whole camp, really, not just our camp, not just our scouters, but
Everybody going through.
yeah, everybody that had to go down that path. And so they got the Adapt and Overcome Award. I was quite proud of that.
That's really cool. So, why is adapting and overcoming important to you? That's something that you're very passionate about, just in your life in general.
I think that it's easy for people to adopt a victimhood mentality of, oh, this is happening to me, I'll just suffer through it, or I'm this it's really a mental strength to be able to adapt and overcome, and rather than just suffer through stuff. And so it's a skill, because if you're critically thinking about ways to make your life better, or where to get resources, or what you can do, you show up and you forget a spoon at a camp out, and you say, well, I'm gonna, instead of just saying woe is me and suffering through it, you whittle yourself some chopsticks, or you carve yourself a spoon. That translates into other parts of your life that could really make a difference. My brother, my brother Flint, he's really amazing at adapting to situations, and he has so many stories where he pulls over on the side of the road, and there's a lady who her car is broken down, and he pulls over to help, and it's the fan belt that has come off and is broken, and well, you can't do anything with you can't drive without the fan belt working. So that serpentine belt, if it's not there, you're toast. So he says, well, hey lady, do you have some pantyhose? And she did.
What?
And they made a serpentine belt out of pantyhose, and it got her to the next. Oh, you'd be surprised what you can do with a pair of pantyhose. Got her to the next town, and they got her out back and going. And
I think that's going to be the name of this episode. You can be surprised what you can do. Just kidding. With a pair of pantyhose.
Yeah, that's good. Good name for it.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, shoot, off the top of my head, you can put onions in them and preserve your onions. A really good way to do that. You can use it as a filtration device, a net for catching fish. You can wear it on your head and rob a bank.
So this feels like a next level puzzle of life. Like, how you're doing puzzles, you're like, ooh, can it fit here? Can it fit here? This is like ultimate life puzzle. Like, where can I find a piece that will fit here and work here?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's fun, and it's a skill, and as you develop it, you get better at it. And there's certain jobs that require you to have what we call critical thinking, which is basically adapting and overcoming. Critical thinking, being an electrician, being a plumber, being a medical personnel like a nurse or a doctor. You've got to be able to critically think, and that is a skill. And I've taught a lot of people that don't have that skill, and then they develop it, and it's amazing to see how much of a difference that it really sets you free, because now you're not constrained to what is manufactured and given to you. Now you can think outside the box. You can create. You can develop. You can explore. You can go with confidence, knowing that if something happens, I can do something about it. I don't have to be the victim of my circumstances. Yeah, so
It's really cool just thinking about like that takes faith to say, you know, obviously the situation did not work, but I know that God's got a piece, something here that can help me. Just keep looking around, see who or what shows up and how I can make it work. Well, that's cool. Like a dance between you and God.
yeah.
You have a little dance experience too, don't you?
That's a whole nother
That's
story.
That's
a whole
different
other,
episode.
whole other
Part
podcast.
2.
I guess if this is a popular podcast, then maybe we'll do a part 2, and I can tell you how my dancing experience won me accolades in basic training.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that story. All right.
Or how I saved my drill sergeant's life and got a letter from the president and a dinner with the sergeant.
Okay, all right. I hear it. We just need a part 2 here. All right, send your story requests here in the comments. All right. Well, before we close, is there anything from your perspective and all your experiences you've had in your life, what do you wish that other people could see and understand, that you see and understand based on the experiences you've had?
Oh my goodness, there's so many.
Like if you could just put them in your shoes for this moment and show them something, what would it be?
I would probably say that most. I would probably say that most things that seem important at the time are not important at all. And the things that seem like they can wait are often more important and shouldn't wait. And what I mean by that is most emergencies take care of themselves. And in the medical field, I always told my students, remember 3 things. It's their emergency, not yours. And by that I mean you're there to help them. And so if you freak out and if you're panicking or you're getting pulled into this drama of this emergency situation, it doesn't have to be medical, it could be anything. It could be something broken at work that's not working and everybody's freaking out, or
Or ministry,
yeah, it could be anything. If you're freaking out, then you're not helping. So just remember, hey, it's their emergency. And well, the other thing that so there's 3 things. I'll just say all 3 things and then I'll okay. So first, it's their emergency, not yours. The second thing is never try harder than your patient. And then the third thing is it's harder to kill somebody than you think it is. Now, the first 2 definitely have practical, well, actually all 3 have practical everyday life experiences. So the emergency thing we covered, it's most emergencies take care of themselves. Or in the military, we say all bleeding stops eventually. So, and you'd be surprised at, if you didn't answer your phone for 24 hours, if emergency calls come in and people need you for X, Y, and Z, how many of those things will get sorted out themselves and people will adapt and overcome? When I say don't ever try harder than your patient, that doesn't mean don't care, don't love them, don't try to teach them. That doesn't mean don't try to do the best that you can for them. What it means is you can beat yourself up trying to care for people that just have no interest in progressing and being better or bettering themselves. So teach them. encourage them, but don't try harder than them.
That's pretty good.
It sounds callous, but I think it serves your mental health.
Well, yeah, I think all of us, like, we progress at our own rate, and when someone pushes us, that doesn't feel good, and that's not ultimately really going to help us. So that's a really good concept.
The third one, it's harder to kill somebody than you think. That really mostly applies to parents and raising kids.
We all worry about that a little bit.
Your kid will survive. So.
Wow.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for that wisdom. I appreciate your interview. Can't wait for part 2. I also want to see if there's anybody you'd like to nominate to be interviewed.
Nominate.
Who's somebody in the ward you'd like to hear from?
Well, there's lots of people. I think Bob Nine would be a fantastic person to hear from. I fear that if you interview him next, though, you'll get a lot of the similar stories because all great men are cut from the same piece of cloth.
You guys have some similar stories.
I suspect that he would have some very similar stories. So.
Okay, so we'll reach out there. Well, thanks for the interview, and we'll see you again next time.
Oh, can I throw in one? Okay, if you're not going to do Bob Nine next, Bert Dixon is also.
Oh,
a good one
he's
too,
good too. Oh man,
he'll keep you going for longer than an hour, I'm sure.
We'll just make a series, the Bert Dixon series. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all on the next episode of the Round Rock Ward podcast. You've been listening to Adam Christensen. Thank you.